Hello folks, we have a game here called Aztlan. This is a game of, it's represented by like a Mayan themed game. This is a nice little miniature version of maybe a Risk type game. So you're trying to conquer lands, you're trying to own territories and gain points because of the territories you own. The interesting part about this game is how the math works. It's not terribly difficult once you've played it, but the rule book is a little bit sketchy, so it's not the easiest thing to learn. So I'm going to give you an overview here of what it looks like, and we'll see if you enjoy this game as well. So this is the map. The map looks very basic, but it's very strategically placed. I've noticed that the numbers of the lands that are on here are represented by like grasslands and deserts and jungles and mountains and temples. They're all equal. It's equal across the board. They might be spaced out a little bit differently, but it's all equal, which is really cool because this game is based around how many places you can occupy and how many you can occupy and multiply. And I'll show you what that means. So everybody starts off with their own cards, their own color, their own cards, and all of the cards are the same for every player. You have numbers on the front that go anywhere from 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9. This game will be played over 5 rounds, leaving you with 1 card. Okay? There's a reason for that, but we'll talk about that in a second. So what you do is you secretly take a card that you're going to play, and this one is the 8, so the 8 actually has a representation of grasslands. Grasslands is also on the board. If you can see that, all the grasslands have the same symbol on them. So 8 stands for grasslands. All the other cards have a different land on them, with the exception of the 4. The 4 is a wild card, which would mean it stands for whatever you have the most of. So we're going to leave 4 out for a second. Play number 8. So I'm playing number 8. I'm trying to get grasslands. Grasslands would be my multiplier. So if I lay this down, this is going to be what I'm going to be. I start off with 8 pawns, so does everybody else. And in turn order, we go around the board placing pawns on the board. Now you can occupy the same space. You can occupy multiple space. You can put multiple pawns on multiple spaces. What you're trying to do though is you're trying to connect is the number of lands you can get with the multiplier being whatever card you're playing. So if I've laid all my pawns like this, and red's played over here, and they've connected a few over there, we'll determine who wins. But aside from that, what we're looking to do is add up the number of lands we've connected. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands are connected in this little group by the multiplier grasslands. So I have 2 of them being grasslands. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 lands connected with 2 grasslands is 12 points. 6 times 2 grasslands is my multiplier. So some people struggle with that initially, but once you play it once or twice, it completely makes sense. So you're just trying to connect things together. The drawback is that once I've played grasslands, everybody can see I've played grasslands, and we must leave it face up. The next round I play, I must use a different card. So now I can no longer play grasslands, as there's only 1 grasslands card in the game, with the exception of the 4. The 4 is a wild, it can be grasslands again. So if you really are dominating and you hold a lot of grasslands and you really want that multiplier for a second round, you can always play your multiplier card, your wild card, and act as grasslands again. Now the way that the game gets altered is that the value 8 on this card, for instance, is going to be what my pawns are valued at for this round. So each pawn that I've played is an 8. If I have 2 on one space, then I have a total of 16 on this space. Now that's relevant when you start getting conflicts, because red might have a couple over here and a couple over here, and then there are 2 against 1 on this jungle space, where the yellow has 2 against 1 versus red in this desert space. Now if red had played a 5, for instance, and I had played an 8, well, this desert space I've clearly won because both of my pawns are worth 8, and I've determined that I have 16 points here, where red is determined that they've got 5 points here. The bad part is that red on this space has 2 pawns there, and I only have 1. So I have 8 points, but they have 10 because there's 2 that are valued at 5. So they're going to determine whether or not this pawn lives or dies, and I'm going to determine whether this pawn lives or dies. Now, there's pluses and minuses to both of those. You can knock somebody off, which if I knock this pawn off, and let's get an example here that makes sense. If he's connected in a chain like this, all of his pawns all of his pawns are connected like this. If I knock this one off, then that separates the two, and these groups will be valued at less for whatever card he plays. So maybe that makes sense to me. But then red also has the option to knock my pawn off. In this particular structure, if he knocks off my pawn, I'll still stay connected, so I don't really mind. So that's a strategic play, okay? But red being connected in a straight line like this means if I knock this one off, then his are separated. And if he picked like jungle, for instance, his multiplier would be lower. So the math on this would be, you have to pay attention to stuff like that if you're looking to do well. But I really like that as a style, simply because once you see somebody's played a card, you kind of know what they have left. Seeing how they have the same cards as you, it's really not card counting. You really have to just look at what you've got and you know what they've got. So that kind of math's really interesting. If you allow them to live, I don't have to knock this pawn off. I can say you can stay there, and then there's all these cards you can get on the side. These cards will do different things. They'll allow, like a canoe here allows the waterways to make things connected. So if red got knocked off, but has canoes, they're still connected by the waterway. So this group of lands and that group of lands would still stay connected, which is kind of neat. I mean, there's little factors like that in these cards that kind of change the outcome. So the cards sometimes make all of the difference, and it depends on how you're playing and who you're playing. I really like the style of this game simply because you're not really certain who's winning until you start adding the points, and then you see somebody's ahead. And the really cool system they have here is that you're playing with 4 people, and you've determined who goes first is blue, green, red, and yellow. And then as you gain points, yellow gets the most points this round. They shoot all the way around the board and they're at 28 or something like that. And then blue's behind with 24, and then green has 18, and then red has 7. Well, then the next round, this is the turn order. So yellow would take first place, blue would take second, green would take third, and red would take fourth. Now, you're placing your pawns on in turn order. So the first player that plays a pawn, and everybody's playing the same number of pawns, if I place here, everybody knows I've gone there. Everybody else is going to be going after that, and I'm in the lead. So if I'm in the lead and they see, well, he's trying to take deserts, well, then they might group up and take out my deserts. Or if I'm tricking everybody and actually want something adjacent to that, they still might attack me. So blue has the option to go next, and then green will place theirs, and we'll start adding all these pawns up. And this board will start looking like a giant mess, and there'll be groups of areas, and there'll be, green might dominate the center over here, but none of that changes anything because you still only have so many cards you can play. Now, before I had mentioned that you play 5 rounds and you have 6 cards. The reason that is at the bottom of these cards, there's victory points. And if you keep a card, at the end of the game, you can flip that over, and whatever the victory point is, you'll add to it. So if we're 100 points and I've got 105 points, but somebody had saved the number 8 here, the number 8 at the bottom has 14 victory points. So they'll jump ahead 8 and 14 points at the end of the game. This can be like a make or break kind of card. But the drawback is that these high numbers have high victory points, but if you didn't play them, then your pawns aren't worth much. So if you didn't play the 8 during the game, then you might have lost land during the game. So that can be a plus and a minus as well. So the different avenues of this game has gotten overlooked by a lot of people. A lot of people pass by it and never realize it because the board doesn't look flashy, but the strategy in this game is really good. Now, they do suggest that you can play 2 players on this. I don't think a 2-player game is worth it. If you're not playing 3, I prefer this game with 4 because then there's a lot going on. 2-player, I don't think I would play it regularly with 2 players. It's just not interesting. So if you're not playing with at least 4 people, I would ignore it. But if you're playing with 4 people, this is a battle. This game is a battle with 4 people. So thumbs up for multiplayer game. Thumbs, if you're playing 2 players, I would skip it. But yeah, if you can manage a 4-player game, this is definitely you'll find this to be a lot of cutthroaty fun. If that's the kind of game you like, and that's definitely the kind of game that I like to play. Is that we're battling for supremacy over this little tiny chunk of land, and everybody can see what you're playing. Brilliant kind of strategy. So yeah, if you like this kind of game, this is definitely my kind of game. It might not be for everybody, but this is definitely my kind of game. So thumbs up for Aztlan. Anybody can play this game. Easy math. Thumbs up. Yeah.